Would you look at that, guys? Laudatio, or Timeless Purple, finally graced us with its presence. I guess all it took was moving it to the south side and letting it bake in the sun. So that is the first lesson I'll mention about Laudatio. Don't do my mistake and place it on the north side, because it will absolutely not bloom in a more shady condition, in my opinion. At least not in my climate. 6 to 7 hours of sun was not enough. It much rather preferred like 12 hours. So I'll be keeping this one on the south side. But I thought in this video today I'll go over my thoughts about the purple roses, and we'll go over the scent on Laudatio rose. And let's have a whiff on Laudatio here. Oh yeah, I'm totally getting a myrrh scent on this one. I'm kind of surprised because a lot of people were telling me it was more fruity. But I'm not getting a lot of fruit on Laudatio here. I'm getting myrrh and a bit of vanilla. Let's have a whiff again. Yeah. It is something kind of like myrrh. Some would probably also say aniseed. I actually took some aniseed here from the kitchen, so we could try and compare. This is aniseed. Let's have a whiff of that. Yeah, and a whiff of Laudatio here. Honestly, it is very close. Like, I do get a little bit of fruity notes, but it is only when this one overpowers the more myrrh aniseed scent and this one that I can even scent some of the small fruity notes at the background. Otherwise, all I'm sending is kind of these myrrh aniseed notes. So I'm not really sure if this classifies as a fruity fragrance, in my opinion. Most of what I'm getting is this myrrh aniseed tone. But let's try to... Yeah, it is difficult. I'm trying to decide between if it really is myrrh or aniseed, and those two notes are so close to each other. But I actually do think it is giving me a bit more aniseed than myrrh, and the reason I say that is because it ends on a bit of a salty note, not as much of a woody note. But it is definitely more towards the aniseed and myrrh fragrance, this one. If you like something like licorice, the scent of licorice, licorice, aniseed, myrrh, those are the scents it's really are hitting on those primary notes. But a really beautiful deep color. This is not the biggest bloom. Mine is still a bit shy about blooming, so, but let's have a whiff again. Yeah, it is definitely not fruity. Definitely not fruity. There's a little bit of fruit, but it is so far back that even if I take the most deep whiff, yeah, if I take the most deep whiff, I'm getting like 98% myrrh, and there's like 2% fruit all the way back, like 5 seconds after the scent has entered my nose. So I wouldn't call this fruity. There's very little of the Gallica fragrance in this one. Very, very powerful aniseed and myrrh fragrance. But I actually think it is aniseed, not myrrh. Yeah, it is hitting that salty ammonia note. And usually when it's salty and ammonia, it is mainly aniseed. Like when you're hitting more the myrrh note, it is more balsamic, it is more woody. So I actually think we'll have to classify this one as an aniseed note. Yeah, definitely. It is salty and ammonia at the end, not a sweet balsamic and woody. But what are my thoughts about the strength of the fragrance? I actually think this one is an 8.5. Yeah, it is an 8.5, I think. It could go as high as a 9, maybe even more, but this is a very small bloom. But it is for sure 8.5, maybe rising to a 9. So, what are my thoughts about purple roses? Well, I think Goethe and Laudatio here are really the top contenders for the first spot. The difference, if I had to say, the difference between the two is this one has more aniseed notes, more licorice notes, while something like Goethe or Pure Poetry is more a mix. In that one you still have myrrh, you have tea, and you have raspberry. So Goethe is more of a mix of fragrances, while this one is more pure aniseed. So that is the main difference. If you like something like licorice, you eat licorice, or you like dishes with aniseed, or you just like the scent of aniseed, then you'll most likely really love Laudatio. It is quite an addictive scent if you like those more aniseed scents. While something like Goethe or Pure Poetry is much tougher to decide what it is scented of, because at the front end of Goethe you have tea notes and you have myrrh notes, and those two hit the nose at the same time, creating a very pleasant blanket. And then at the back end you get a very, very well-rounded raspberry scent. So Goethe is much more complex in the scent, but honestly I like both of them. I'm not going to force people to choose, because I think both Goethe and Laudatio here, Timeless Purple, deserve a spot in your garden. On health, I'll say they're really similar. I haven't noticed much difference. Both wonderfully healthy on the leaf. Both want to get tall, about a meter in height, and both want to produce big blooms. So if you had to choose, it is not choosing one or the other like you would choose a non-scented or a scented rose. It is really down to you to decide, do you like a more aniseed fragrance, or do you like a fragrance that is more mixed? I just went ahead and pulled out some myrrh incense here, because I wanted to be absolutely sure about the fragrance, if it is aniseed or myrrh. But let's have a whiff of myrrh. Oh yeah, very woody, very more smoked, more sweet. Let's have a... Yes. And let's go back to the aniseed. No, there's no doubt. It is aniseed. It is definitely aniseed. This one matches the most. That said, sometimes I have to, when it's very close, I sometimes have to get both myrrh and aniseed out to really be sure of it. And I know this is a rose many want, so I really want to nail this one on the fragrance. But let's go over the options for purple roses for you. In my opinion, let's start from the top and go down. I would say at the top you have Goethe and you have Laudatio here. And as I said before, if you want tea, myrrh and raspberry, go for Goethe. If you want aniseed, go for this one, Laudatio. That said, I don't believe the two roses are in competition, and let me explain why. Laudatio has a much more T-hybrid shape, where it gets a much more pointy shape to it, while something like what is it called, Goethe or Laudatio is much more this, as I'll show here, this more rosette shaped, more cupped shape to it. So on the shape of blooms, they're not in competition. They're not in competition in the way you can use them either, because both of them have to be placed at the back of a flower bed with the height. So those two are really the kings of purple roses, the most scented of them. Then you can go down a notch, and then you encounter blackberry nib, you encounter Stephen's big purple. Now Stephen's big purple and blackberry nib tend to give you a more laid back gallica scent. Often it is scented like a little bit of red wine, red grapes, and these more red berries. I especially think blackberry nib is scented very much like red wine and a bit of these blackberries at the end, but those are a step down on fragrance. Guess it's not that far between blackberry nib and Laudatio on potency, but I don't find always blackberry nib to be the most reliable. And understand me right, some of the older blooms on my older blackberry nib can get very scented. Then you take some of the newer blackberry nibs I have in the garden and they're not as scented. And also sometimes with weather, that can really also depend on how scented my blackberry nib is. So even though my blackberry nib and also Stephen's big purple can create a very powerful scent, they're not always the most reliable. Goethe and Laudatio are far more reliable on a scent. And then you can take a step further down and you, well, maybe some would also add eptide, but the reason I don't add eptide is because eptide is more this mauve color, whereas this grayish tone thrown in. But then you can take a step down and take another very pure purple, which is Fur-Elise. Fur-Elise sadly don't have that much scent. She is really healthy though and really floriferous, and she is very compact. That's another thing I, by the way, also like about blackberry nib. It is very compact. One thing I do notice about blackberry nib is you don't want to put things too close to blackberry nib, because the lower leaves on blackberry nib can get black spot if you box it in. So I still think Laudatio and Goethe, no, Pure Poetry, are really the golden standard when it comes to purple roses. But something like blackberry nib still has a very good use, because blackberry nib is not that tall. Like my blackberry nib is probably like this, like these 50 to 60 centimeters tall, and quite healthy and quite floriferous. Just don't let plants grow into it, or it can suffer a bit of black spot at the lower leaves. But yeah, I'm in seven minds about the purple roses right now. I really like them, but they do require a bit of sun. I really like Laudatio here. It has been quite a wait, but I think Laudatio will do very well together with Pure Poetry or Goethe. They're both excellent purple roses, and probably the main purple roses you should be betting on getting. And if you have more space, you can add a blackberry nib, or even Fur-Elise I actually think is a very pretty purple rose. It is just not that scented. But yeah, that was Laudatio. Laudatio is aniseed scented, 8.5 right now might go to a 9, but very good scent on Laudatio. Just remember to place it where it gets a lot of sun and so it flowers for you, and don't do my mistake of placing it on the north side because it absolutely wants sun to form those flowers. So yeah guys, that's it for today. Take care out there.